Welcome, everybody. It's good to have you. Okay, welcome. It is Wednesday, February 26th, as we creep towards the end of February and the end of crossover time. We're turning to economic development this morning, and we will be, after we have the witnesses, initially we're going to be looking at our draft economic development bill. And many of the elements of that bill we heard at our Small Business Wednesday several weeks ago, and some of the needs articulated for small businesses. And so to kick us off, we have Ellen Kaler, and I think we have all introduced ourselves. The only person who wasn't with us on Small Business Wednesday.
We're all
yeah. You missed that, but you introduced yourself, right? So you have a notion of who we are.
Yeah.
Great. Perfect. Ellen, it's yours.
Great. Thank you so much. For the record, Ellen Kaler, Vermont Sustainable Jobs Fund Executive Director. Really happy to be here with you. Thank you for this opportunity. It was really, really wonderful to do the Small Business Wednesday with you all on January 29th. We were sorry that Senator Brock was unable to make it. I think what I took away from that was that you all found it very helpful. I'm hoping that's been the case. Since then, our intention was to provide an opportunity to sort of do some level setting on the challenges that small businesses, those under 20 employees, face in our state. Our representative Duke was one of the presenters giving her story of Sugar Snap Catering, which was fantastic. And so after that day, Senator Clarkson caught me in the hall and said, there was a lot of good ideas that came out of those presentations and from hearing from the business owners. Would you be willing to put together some ideas that we could consider for an economic development bill? So I went back to Nicole and Mieko and Weiwei and Linda, and we put together the concept paper that you have in front of you. And because the January 29th session, we intentionally, that was intentionally not a pitch session. We did not come forward at that day with specific recommendations for policy or funding needs. We really just wanted to do that level setting. But because Senator Clarkson asked then for okay, so what are your ideas? We said, okay, we'll put that together.
Well, and I think in all fairness, we heard the needs, whether they were asked for or not. It became clear, I think, for those of us who were listening, what some of the needs might be. And so this work is what you did was great. And I just want to say, not all of it is in for this before crossover, but a lot of the elements and a lot of the concepts here are in our draft bill, because given our time, we had to run with what was building on what we already have. And I think one of the things, my takeaways was, we have great resources in place. We just need to be able to expand them a bit to make them really useful for more small businesses in Vermont.
Correct. And so what we did was we put together this concept paper with 7 ideas, and they're not in any particular priority order. They're just ideas that we have been working on in many different ways over the years. And then the layout of it was to just simply provide a little bit of the what is the ask, why we're asking for it, to give you the background information about what's important about it, and then if there's any, and who the beneficiaries would be if we were to go forward with that. So very simple sort of template of approach to provide the details. And so what you're going to hear from my partners here is a little bit more of a walkthrough of the specifics. But I think the big picture of this is, as Senator Clarkson said, we have an incredible array of highly skilled, experienced business and technical assistance providers in the state, through a number that are held at a number of nonprofit organizations across the state. And they are woefully under-resourced based on the level of need from the small business community. So as we mentioned, 93% of all small businesses in the state have less than 20 employees. And so the level of support for that community of business, small business owners, is not commensurate the funding for that is not commensurate with the level of need. And so, as Senator Clarkson said, our suggestions for this session is to see if there's any way to increase the capacity of this support work to be able to provide more support for more businesses over this next year. And then there's a couple of concepts in here that probably would be worth a longer term conversation, in particular, as Linda Rossi is going to talk about concept 7, because there is some work that's happening this year in House Commerce on the CTE funding formula. And Chair Marcotte thought that it was important to get that done first, as opposed to jumping into concept 7. So just as an example of
So
some things.
I'm just gonna, I think we've talked about this, but we're doing workforce, we're waiting for that bill, we're doing workforce after crossover.
Great.
And so we await that work.
Yep.
And we will build on it.
Yep. So I'll just jump us to concept 4, because that's the one that I provided some input on, and that starts on bottom of page 6. And the intention here is related to the Vermont Training Program. So the Vermont Training Program, as you all know, provides very important opportunities for employers to receive some level of state funding to cost share the training, the upskilling of their employees. So let's say you have a new CNC machine at your factory, for instance, and you're bringing in, and that's increasing your capacity to get more throughput, and you need a couple more workers to be able to learn that machine. You can apply to the training program, get some funding to be able to do that upskilling training. Technically speaking, in the current statute, there's nothing precluding businesses under 20 employees from receiving support from the training program, and there are some that do. However, one of the main things that we pointed out during the Small Business Day is that when you're at a 20-person shop or less, the business owner is most often actually working in the business alongside their workers. It's not like they're sitting back in the back room with their feet up waiting for things to happen, right? They're on the floor producing products, making the sales, making sure that the bills are paid. Like, they're doing the work that alongside their employees. And so I have thought for many years that it would be helpful to those of us who do provide business coaching and training to business owners and to their management teams to support the development of their business and the working on their business, not just in their business, to be able to access Vermont Training Program dollars. My organization, the Sustainable Jobs Fund, we have a robust business coaching program. We have about 10 C-suite level coaches that work with about 20 businesses over the course of over a 12 to 18 month period. They go deep into the coaching of the owner, the leader, and the management team of those businesses, because our view and what we have experienced is that it's often those business owners, they don't take enough time during the course of the week to work really on their business. And sometimes, not for any intention, it holds back the ability of that business to be more profitable, to go after new markets, because nobody's paying attention to some of that work that needs to happen. They oftentimes started their business because of a passion for the product, but didn't necessarily go to business school, or so the executive business skills that they learn, they tend to learn on the job by doing. And so they get to a certain point in the evolution of their business, the growth of their business, where they need to have a level up in their executive business skills. My organization, along with Vermont Manufacturing Extension Center, to a certain extent, with Vermont POC and with Small Business Development Center, we all do some amount of coaching with businesses in this regard. And so the Sustainable Jobs Fund has access from our training program funding in the past for a particular business, typically at the $10,000 level. So it's a small ask. The business then puts in $10,000 because you have to match it 1 for 1. The changes in the statute that I'm putting forward would accomplish 2 things. One, it would clarify the intent of the legislature that it's okay for the staff of the training program to consider business owners as also workers in their business, and therefore make it easier for an organization like mine to periodically ask for funding from the training program to work with a business owner that we're working with. There's been times when I made that ask for doing strategic planning, for instance, which I was told was not training. And I think it actually is, because if you've never done strategic planning before, we're training people how to do strategic planning. And then that then leads to additional training on how to implement and how to execute on those plans. And it typically involves revenue forecasting for the first time. Sometimes it involves learning how to actually develop an annual budget for the first time. So it's like through the strategic planning process, there's all these other ways in which we are training. We are not a program, for instance, that wants to keep going with a business. We're not like a typical consultant where we do the work for the business and we try to extend that relationship for years and years. What we do is it's a 12 to 18 month intensive, helping that business get from where they are now to the next stage of their development. And that involves a lot of training. But it's been hard to make that case given the scrutiny that the training program has had over the years. So that would be one thing, would be to clarify that a business owner of a small business, 20 or under 20 employees, that business owner recognizing that they too are actually working in their business on a day-to-day basis. The second would be to enable, in the statute, there is language that requires the verification of a livable wage and a certain number of benefits. For business owners, sometimes they don't treat themselves as W-2 employees. They take an owner's draw. And so it's not clear whether or not an owner's draw is an acceptable threshold for the current statute. So we're just looking for some clarification from you all on that piece.
Yeah, sure, Randy, sorry.
The livable wage and what is the statutory requirement?
The Joint Fiscal Office's latest livable wage report. The numbers in that report become the threshold.
That's been
That is the threshold for all employees or
for those to be trained.
to be trusted.
And then to make sure that they are actually increasing their wages post-training. The intention is to help them actually continue their wage growth and better benefits.
And is there an add date as far as the length of time that this exists, or is this a livable wage that they will obtain after they have the training, but
After they have the training.
without any time limit one way or the other?
I believe the statute actually says at the point that the training hasn't concluded, they need to be earning a livable wage and have certain benefit thresholds.
And that's been from the beginning of the training program, right?
Yeah. And so we don't have there's no issue with that at all. It's good. It provides a reason to keep the livable wage and basic needs budget going every year, so that you actually have a report to base it off of.
Right. How does what you do in terms of training for small business owners and the like match with what the SBA does in their business advisory program?
Yeah, it's just a different group of businesses. You know,
Is it the same or same service?
I haven't gone through their program, so I can't answer
Sorry, which
directly.
program you be in?
Small Business Administration has a business advisory program that does similar things.
They have a cohort model, is my understanding, where they'll have, I don't know what the number is, 12 businesses. 12 businesses that will go through at a time. So again, there's 27,000 businesses with less than 20 employees. And so part of this is wanting to increase the capacity overall. But part of it is different business owners learn in different ways. Some business owners really respond well to that cohort model where they're with their peers and they're learning a set curriculum together over time, and there's a lot of interaction between. We actually run a couple of cohort programs ourselves and find that to be really valuable. But then there's a need, we think, for that real one-on-one tailored approach based on where that business is in their life cycle and their revenue growth.
Is the small business program limited in terms of the number of people that they accept in Vermont?
I think it's limited by the resources.
The Thrive
That's
program
part of
by
what I've read.
SBA does have some parameters of time in business and revenues.
Well, I'm just trying to determine whether what we're doing is additive or duplicative.
And I think what Brandy's saying is very important as we
Yes,
look through
yes.
these, because this is resources that on the surface may look duplicative, but I
It may
don't.
not be, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and I think that's
Yeah.
clear, important for us
Yeah.
to know that where they are and where they aren't.
Yeah, and the other thing to know, because the Stable Jobs Fund by statute works in the farm, food and forest and clean energy sectors, we are limited in terms of working with businesses in those sectors. And as we know, there's a lot of other sectors, so. Yeah. And we've always taken the approach of filling gaps and making sure that our services are not duplicative. And we can really only service 20 to 25 businesses a year, so.
Let's keep moving.
Yes, so any other questions for me? I'll hand it over to,
And roughly how many additional employees, how many additional people and businesses could the training program take on? I know we're gonna have to hear from John.
no, I don't know it. Every year, the allocation for their base funding is a little bit different. Between, there's a base level and then there's sometimes you all add additional one-time funds to increase. So I don't have a sense. Their annual report indicated that I think it was 40 businesses last year were serviced
Right.
by through their program. Yeah, 40 employers benefited from $1.8 million in state funding support. So all we're asking for it from a statute change is simply to make it clearer and easier for the Single Jobs Fund and
Right.
others like Vermont Manufacturing Center, Extension Center to be able to access existing funds,
Right.
just to clarify eligibility.
And I think the one thing we might just channeling the senator to my left, we might also want to ask for an update at the end, after a year or two to see how many owners
Yeah.
actually take advantage of this,
Yeah.
because it would be good to know if, and John can obviously.
Yeah, I mean, there's two different ways that the program distributes funds. Either an employer comes to the training program and asks for training and says, I want to hire this trainer, or I want to
Right.
do this work, and then they receive the grant. Or in case of what we've done in the past is that we have a client that is interested in working with us, and the jobs fund applies for the $10,000 on behalf of that client, and then we manage all the paperwork so they don't have to.
Oh, that's,
And they put in, they still have to do the 50% cost share.
so
So
that,
they have,
Well, measurement
20.
criteria in which we determine if we in effect invested in a program or plan is to know what the results are that come out of that. Now, small business development centers, for example, claim to have created 239 new jobs last year, 25 new businesses started, 10.7 million capital infusion that they facilitated, and so on. So they're measurement.
Yeah.
And
and the same with John. I mean,
Yeah.
John comes to us, I mean, we haven't had John Young
it's
in yet,
their
he
annual
runs the
report.
training program,
Yeah.
but I think they're in the report,
Yes, he has all of that data in their report.
so it'd be interesting when we chat with him, it'd be great to add if more owners.
All right,
Great.
thank you. Next up.
Thank you. And this piece is in the draft that we'll go
Yeah.
through with Ray.
Morning, everyone. My name is Miyako Zeki, and I'm speaking here on behalf of the Women Plus Small Business Collaborative that's listed on the top of the proposal. And we're here to talk about the Vermont Small Business Resource Platform. So I'm going to provide some context of what brought me here to this, and then what the work is. So back in 2018, I co-founded a group called Vermont Womepreneurs with my partner, Bethany Andrews-Nichols. We're a for-profit network that brings together women who own and run businesses across our state. And every year we host more than 40 meetups and an annual summit that has over 250 women business owners in attendance. We've built quite a community with over 14,000 followers on social media and 3,000 newsletter subscribers. So over time, we've naturally evolved into something like an information hub. And most of the business support organizations here have regularly reached out to us saying, hey, can you spread the word about this workshop or this grant opportunity? And of course, we spread it because we have the platform to be able to share that information with Vermont business owners. So the challenge we've observed is that Vermont has many wonderful business resource organizations, but they operate like islands. There's no obvious map connecting these islands, no clear central place where a business owner can go and to understand what's available. And so think about it as if you're a woman business owner who's just starting out, you need help with getting a financial projection, but where do you go? Or consider someone who's been running their business for 5 years and needs to hire their first employee. Who can guide them through that process? So I find myself acting like a human switchboard. So, I get a lot of, oh, you should, I tell them, oh, you should talk to this person at Vermont Small Business Development Center, or have you connected with Center for Women in Enterprise? So I know where to direct people because I've built over the years a relationship with these different organizations over years. But most business owners, they don't have that inside knowledge. So this isn't just affecting women business owners. We also see this probably with veterans, BIPOC entrepreneurs, people with disabilities. All these communities face the same barriers when trying to access support, regardless of what stage they're in business, and whether they're starting out, growing steadily, or planning for succession. So the research, what we have seen thus far over the last 10 years is the This Way Up survey from the Vermont Women's Fund really confirmed that what we've been seeing. So the survey, which was conducted between 2021 and 2023, surveyed over 3,432 women business owners. And this is what jumped out to me. Only 2% have used the business resources that are available in our state. And so think about that. There are all of these great resources, but hardly anyone is using them.
That is really sad.
So when asked what they needed, these business owners said that they wanted a connection with industry networks and someone experienced who could guide them through the challenges. 90% said they wanted a support network of fellow leaders. So the interest is there. The resources are there, but the connection between the two is missing. So to contextualize how this proposal came about, so in January 2024, after This Way Up report came out, Meg Smith, formerly the executive director of the Vermont Women's Fund, brought key organizations, so those who are listed in this proposal, together to tackle this problem. And so Vermont Works for Women shared that they were struggling to connect women with their mentorship program. And others in that same group were lamenting that they were expressing similar challenges in connecting their services to a wider audience. With the support of the new director of the Vermont Women's Fund, Emily Bush, we worked with Game Theory, who developed the survey and platform for the This Way Up, to run a discovery workshop in July. We asked ourselves, how can we create something that pulls all this information together without creating more work for already busy organizations? And so what we came up with is what you will see in the proposal. It's a 3-part solution to this platform. The first is the kit, which think about this as like an annual magazine, or if you've been in college, in the admission book where once a year they collect information about all of the different programs. So that tells kind of the success stories and also helps business owners understand what is available in terms of this entrepreneurial ecosystem. And we're asking for $40,000 for that. And that would be a limited edition published publication once a year, and probably would be distributed to libraries and other places, easy points of access where people can get that book.
It would also be online, I assume.
Yes, also. So this is the second part, is the website. So that would be the digital version of that kit. It'll be interactive and searchable, and we're asking for $35,000 for that component. And then an AI system. So this is the added. We want to bring in technology into this. And this will be an aggregate real-time information about events, grants, programs, time-sensitive stuff that changes frequently. And this is where we're start looking at is $25,000. And so talk about in your proposal, you can see a snapshot of what that AI chatbot would look like. And I experimented with this. We tested the concept of it on a custom ChatGPT bot that searches, is specifically added to search Vermont business organization websites for information like workshops, services, and who to contact at those organizations. In doing that, the testing taught us of some important things. Organizations need to keep their websites updated. They need to be we need to be thoughtful about privacy, so of the user. Most importantly, that AI should be the starting point that ultimately connects people with real experts. So we're asking for $100,000 to build this platform, but we know that sustainability matters. And if we receive these funds, here's our plan. We'll bring together even more business service organizations to contribute to the kit. We'll develop guidelines for organizations to keep their websites information current, so it works with the AI assistant. For ongoing funding, we're looking at content sponsorships, similar to what 7 Days and Vermont Public do. We'll also explore licensing model where other states or regions could adapt our platform for use, similar to what we see in, I don't know if you are familiar with the Edible Communities magazine. It's in terms of licensing that. The impact of what we see for this platform is more than reaching more than 27,000 small businesses with under 20 employees. We believe we can increase resource utilization by 50% in the first year alone. But the most important impact is that we're removing the barriers and making resources more accessible to everyone, especially those who have been historically excluded from business support systems. So in closing, the Vermont Small Business Resource Platform isn't just another website or publication. It's a system designed to transform how entrepreneurs find and use support services in our state. We're combining storytelling with technology to create infrastructure that advances economic equity for all Vermont small businesses. But most importantly, this platform is specifically intended to help small business owners effectively utilize the wealth of resources already available in this Vermont's entrepreneurial ecosystem. So that is all I have.
Questions? So, Dave?
No.
You're building on something that you've already started, right?
No,
Or
so
is
this
this
is the
all starting from
proposal.
scratch?
Yeah, this is all starting from scratch. I guess the premise that we're looking at is all the different organizations, they have their websites, they have their programs established. What we're trying to do is kind of have an aggregator, kind of a digest of all of that information into this platform. So both utilizing technology, but also knowing that not everybody is going to want to go onto a computer, having something that physically they could go thumb through to contextualize all these resources.
And I think we heard from you that there are roughly 29,000 small businesses on that.
27,000.
Oh, is it 27?
Yeah, that number. 29 is all.
So, well, you began this as initially for women entrepreneurs. This is actually for all small businesses.
Yes,
This is going to be a resource for everybody.
Yes, but it would point to all of the populations that basically, as Ellen pointed out, a lot of these different programs have particular niches that they work with. And so, but not everyone's aware of the whole breadth of all the different programs are aware. And so for us, this platform is meant to curate for that particular user who they say how many years they've been in business, or maybe they're starting out, but there's particular different thing, like whether they're a veteran and they want to figure out an opportunity through those different resources.
That's great. Sounds like it's much needed.
Yes.
I'm sort of surprised it hasn't been built already.
I think it's been started, I think it's been started in different ways, but it's the matter of, and I actually was talking to another colleague because they're working on a similar kind of collaborative, but for larger industries, is that just getting everyone in the room to say this is an issue. And so this was an opportunity last year for a handful of us to get in a room going, oh, we have similar issues of doing the outreach to this particular audience.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad we've really focused this session, or at least the first half of this session, on small business, which makes up such a huge percent of our business, and really to focus on them and celebrate them and help them.
Yeah, and I think the proof of needing this resource. So I run also a Facebook forum with over 2,000 women business owners, and the same questions come up time and again. How do I start? Or something about taxes or some kind of issue comes up, and it's like we're all crowdsourcing the answer to point people. And so it would be nice to have a place to point them that is Vermont-based, that is also focused and curating and helping from the technology point, starting a conversation and then getting that person to action and effectively use these resources.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, Randy.
How would you measure success? How would you know that the investment has produced a result that's positive and useful?
I think we could do is both, well, digitally, we could find out how many are utilizing resources, how long they're spending on it. We also could probably conduct surveys of those who have utilized the resource. I just did point in fact, when we did the This Way Up survey, part of because we have a larger platform of followers, we actually contribute a lot of the people who are on our newsletter actually participated in that survey and fully answered it and spent their time on it. So I think how we could see success is basically what are the responses they have to it in terms of like, I found this, or just statements about like, I was able to get started because this resource was here. I think we could get a lot of testimonials from that. And I certainly, because I run 40 in-person events, I hear the testimonials all the time and probably could draw in some of that information.
Yeah, great. Terrific, thank you. I think Linda, you appear to be next, unless you guys have a different
I
situation.
am fine to take the order that you have prepared.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm gonna have my phone so I can keep an eye on
Welcome
time.
back. It's so
Thank
good to have
you.
you all back.
Thank you so much. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to join you today. For the record, my name is Linda Rossi. I'm the State Director of Vermont Small Business Development Center. And again, I echo the appreciation for the time that you spent on January 29th to discuss the state of small business in Vermont. So I'm happy to share details on the proposals for which VTS-VDC, as our acronym is the lead organization. I'll start with number 5 and not go necessarily, you have it in front of you. I know you can peruse it and read it. I won't say at your convenience or leisure because you probably not have to do that.
Well, sadly, I mean, one of our challenges is this bill needs to be out next Friday, the 14th.
Right.
So we are, and we, for a variety of reasons, no excuses. This session has been, for a variety of reasons, slower than the past. So we are definitely we need to get a bill out, and that is why we're so grateful that you guys have done so much work to help prepare us for this moment. So.
And thank you for your interest, your openness to the ideas that can take shape from here. So on the proposals for which we are listed as the lead, I'll start with number 5. And that's really the opportunity to serve more Vermonters, entrepreneurs starting businesses, existing business owners through all stages of growing to preparing to sell a business. You name it, as you've heard so far. This request is for an increase by $300,000 in the base state general fund to support us in FY26, which when you think about what that will do, it's really transformational. So it would bring the total funds from the state to $688,889. Rather than the governor's current recommended allocation right now, which is $388,889. I'll touch on a little bit of what this enables us to do. An increase in business advising and educational workshops to meet the demands, again, all stages, topics, regions, industries. We will be able to serve an additional 200 Vermonters through no fee, one-to-one confidential advising. We know it's critical to measure outcomes and performance associated with the investment in money. The Vermont SBDC has demonstrated a return on investment, and we have proven economic impact. We only document it if it is verified and attributed by the business owner, our client, not certain numbers of people that we've seen and talked to, but by them signing off saying, it was this amount of capital or this job or this new business started as a result of the work in advising from the SBDC. So we're very proud of those results, and we absolutely plan to have any investment in financial funding be tied to performance measures, that we can come back, Vermonters, the committee, our stakeholders, and say, this is what you have as results of this additional money.
And just to clarify for our new members, you are our Small Business Administration, the federal grant. You are the SBA's anchor here in Vermont.
So we are one of three resource providers that is funded in part by federal dollars by the SBA. We are the statewide full-time employees on the ground serving all 14 counties under an umbrella that is posted at the Vermont State Colleges. So that was the other piece that I wanted to bring forward, that this SBDC is not a Vermont thing. This is a nationwide business model, and it's a partnership of government, education, and business. So the partnership on the government side is both federal and state dollars. On the higher ed education side, SBDCs are hosted by universities and colleges. And so our host is the Vermont State Colleges at Vermont State University. So they're our fiscal sponsor and host. So my paycheck comes from the Vermont State College system. They do not contribute cash into the SBDC, but they provide shared services, payroll, IT, those kinds of things.
And we funnel state money through VSU to you. No, where does our state
Through
grant?
the Agency of Commerce and the
Through
Department of
ACCD.
Economic Development.
And then we have A Hazel here from ACCD. And then they fund directly VSU.
Yes. So the two grants that we get that fund our program from cash is federal and state. We're required to have at least, so it's a 1-to-1 match. We're required to have at least half of that in cash. The state right now through ACCD provides exactly 50%. It is the 50% required cash match.
So it's a model just like the Vermont Arts Council, just like the community, like many other federal equal 1-to-1 match.
So when I look around the country, that SBDCs on average, the minimally funded by the federal level, it is typical for the state to federal to be 1-to-1. And so in this case, while we're very grateful for the stable funding that we've had from the state over the years, when we look at the level, it has remained relatively unchanged in the last 10 years. So it's risen $31,000 when I look back at what our state.
Really.
And so one of the sort of points just to bring out, we all but balance budgets in our own homes and in our businesses. And so our federal and state investment over this decade has gone up 7%, while the payments that we have to make to the host, because as you know, our host at the Vermont State College is very focused on financial sustainability. So they have steadily increased the portion of grant funds that they take for shared services, which has gone up 47% in that same time frame. So what that means is even with stable funding coming in from federal and state sources, the money that's drawn right off that budget to pay for shared services has put a squeeze on the availability of money for operating and serving Vermonters directly with advice and education. So cutting right to like, what will we do with the money? So as you saw from the proposal, we serve clients really proportionally the way they are segmented by region, by population. So 25%, Chittenden County, 75% in the rest of the state, all stages and sectors, like I said. So we can provide reports back after the money on regions, sectors, stages, what business owners are saying, what they're coming to us requesting guidance for. Currently, we have 6.5 FTE business advisors serving all of Vermont. And last year, as Senator Brock said, we served 531 individual Vermonters. Our average is about 6 hours per client. What we're seeing right now, post-pandemic, 2 back-to-back years of flooding and more resilience and preparedness for disaster work, is that the challenge of demographics, more mature businesses, owners looking to prepare to sell their business, you saw that slide on January 29th, that 58% of small businesses in Vermont are owned by baby boomers, as compared to only 37% of in the US, small businesses are owned by baby boomers. What does that mean? That means that the advising on these topics is in depth. The financial work, refinancing current debt that business owners are struggling to sort of handle right now, longer range strategic planning, protecting their businesses from disasters, from other threats, cyber, otherwise.
But succession planning.
Exactly. And so, we really appreciate your understanding that with money, the infrastructure is there, the system is there, the tracking is there. We'll be able to directly put that money into use serving Vermonters. I'll pause there and quickly go over number 6, unless you want to talk about.
Any questions on the core resource that you're asking for further help to expand in the hope of serving more Vermonters, more small businesses? Thomas.
I don't see in your testimony as I'm looking at that you say the average state cash match is 1-to-1. I'd love to just see a breakout of how we rank relative to all the other states, if you have that, where our peers are.
I do.
Right, if you'd send that to us, that'd be
We're happy to do that.
yeah, great.
Okay.
Great, let's keep going.
Okay. So number 6, the Community Small Business Connector, was really a proposal that came out of the service provider network's desire based on what we're seeing as this gap. And this really fits nicely with the testimony that you just heard from Yanko. This request is for one-time funds of $120,000 to support a person who would be dedicated to serving as a convener and a connector. The reason that this was recommended for us to present this to you is in order, and really to Senator Clarkson's, I think, comment on January 29th, which is how do we leverage and minimize the duplication of service providers and do that in the most efficient way with federal, state, local funds. And so, as you heard, there was a recent 2-year pilot program that was federally funded that had this structure of a hub and spoke. So the Vermont SBDC acted in the hub project management role. The spokes, 9 statewide organizations that are service providers. What that benefit was not only internally to the service providers being better coordinated, understanding each other's services, promoting them within one another's organization. Really, I always say we learned each other's elevators, and we could say that internally and to the external community. So there were both qualitative and quantitative outcomes for that. Increase the awareness of the service providers and their offerings. Focused on sharing knowledge. So thinking about succession planning alone, by bringing the service providers together and saying, this is what we're seeing. These are the trends we're experiencing. What are you seeing? What are you doing about it? Are you doing one-on-one work? Are you putting on a webinar? We're able to leverage those offerings in a more efficient way by having this convener connector. So it's very complementary to what you had just heard in the last testimony.
So can I,
Yes. Absolutely.
as I understand this, what the resource guide is external facing for businesses. This, what you're proposing, is internally focused to the resource community itself.
And would work.
So one is
hand in glove.
external and one is internal as a tool for the providers themselves. Okay. Is that,
That is appropriate. Yeah.
thanks.
So very quickly, you heard on January 29th how crucial it is to support smallest business owners, earliest stages of development. And yet those are often lacking the resources and networks that larger enterprises rely on. And so by providing this connection through the convener, the connector, at the same time with the external resource that you just heard about, we feel that we could leverage federal, state, and local money to its maximum best use.
What's left of it?
Yes. And I will just say on number 7, we talked about tabling that for the future. I wanted you to have it so that you could be thinking about that as we all talk about youth entrepreneurship, career and technical education in our high schools. We know that this initiative that would be proposed
Right, you're
here,
looking at number 7.
number 7,
Because we will probably have you back
Okay.
after crossover
perfect.
when we talk about this, because we're getting a workforce bill from House Commerce.
Okay.
I hope.
So let's
And
look forward to that
We have a
because
bunch of workforce stuff to work on, so.
I think this would be a nice way of having a dialogue around how does this fit into what you're seeing as a priority when you get to that point. So you have some of it to take a look at, but I'm happy to come back at your pleasure at any time.
Right.
Any other questions?
No,
Thank you so much.
thank you very much. This is, it's so logical. It's a little frightening building on what we heard on. Like, whoa, this is great. Welcome, Nicole. And you did not actually testify with us on Small Business Wednesday.
Correct.
You were referred to many times, and your services were referred to many times. And so welcome. But I think you had us all introduced. Do you have a notion of who we are?
I believe you're Mr. Chittenden and you're Mr. Weeks. Is that you're Mr. Gronk? I know you.
Yeah, and Rutland, Franklin, Windsor, 2 from Chittenden Southeast.
Right?
Feel free to call me Tom.
Right. And in full disclosure, Nicole and my husband Oliver Goodenough and Linda Rossi all work together on this project. Oliver is on his way to California at Pittsburgh.
And I want to be perfectly clear, should the legislature see fit to fund us, not a cent will be paid to Oliver Goodenough. I just want to be perfectly clear.
Yeah,
about
right,
that.
exactly.
So for the record, my name is Nicole Kaloran. I'm the director of the Vermont Small Business Law Center at Vermont Law and Graduate School. I have a couple of slides I want to run through to give you guys some numbers and some idea of what we do for the state. We have seen you before, but I know there's some new members on the committee. We provide access to legal services for small businesses. We do that through a couple of different services. We do individual one-on-one educational consults with a team of legal experts with business and organizational owners. We have a referral system with Vermont Bar Association that allows us to find an attorney for the small business, pay for up to 10 hours of services that they receive, no cost of business. And we do a lot of public educational events, presentations, webinars, in-person events, conferences to educate the public about the law.
So just to clarify before you leave that slide,
Yeah.
Initially, a business that qualifies for this advice and counsel gets up to 10 hours of free legal advice.
Correct. They get training with my team, educational training.
Yeah.
We have students and faculty that do research on any topic they want to go into. We can educate them on anything they want to talk about. And then we pass them off to the Vermont Bar Association to find an attorney for them. They get those 10 free hours to enact the work that they need.
Yeah, David.
What's a qualifying business?
So we originally were part of Community Navigator program. We originally were serving pretty much the entire state, and we still are. We have a mandate to serve rural, women-owned, BIPOC-owned, minority-owned, and small businesses, less than 20 employees. And because the
So
entire
our
state is
population,
rural,
we're trying to.
yeah, we have not seen a business we needed to turn away. To be honest with you, they're all less than 20 employees, or we've had one that was more than 20. That was a lot of part-time.
Which was easy, this cough drops behind you.
Pardon.
Pardon.
We're gonna ask your questions.
Just-
Okay. Vermont Bar Association is a really important partner for us. I just wanted to highlight that. They run the legal assistance program. They maintain a low on a panel of firms. That's about 40 deep, as I understand it. These firms love to work with small businesses. They want these clients. We refer everybody, we refer business and organizational clients. We serve nonprofits as well.
That's great. You're sort of a pipeline into our legal community.
Yes, that's
For
what we're
those
doing.
who, that,
And the VBA loves this work. They love
I
being able to
bet they
support the work. They love being able to feed the firms. They get a lot of business out of it. It's coordinated through their legal access coordinator, Mary Ashcroft. They get a reduced rate, $75 an hour. I'd like to raise that a little bit to $100 an hour. This is absolutely critical for our ability to deliver these services. We have 17 community partners that we worked with in 2024. You can see them listed here. I want to note, sorry, I have it on my email. From Rutland, we've got Hub Coworks. We've been doing some programming with those. In Chittenden, we worked with the EOC, Generator, Center for Win-Win Enterprise, CDOEO. And then in Windsor, we have Corey, that we've been working with.
which is just a former senator, remember, Matt
Apologies.
created the Center for, on Rural Innovation.
Oh, right. He was a former senator. I didn't know that.
He was on this committee.
Cool. That's neat. These are the folks that we've been working with, and we've got a lot of the primary partners we work with are Vermont Small Business Development Center, Vermont Bar Association law firms, and the U.S. Small Business Administration, who administers our grant. Number served, this is the people that we saw last year, 288 intakes from businesses needing legal education and services.
Wow.
We did 149 consultations, educational consultations. We did 168 placements with attorneys or they're in process of being placed. 80 plus educational presentations and flood clinics. And we have 39 businesses. We are booked up through June right now.
Wow.
This is how the inquiries have been distributed by the type of entity. As you can see, mostly LLCs. There's a column here for uncertain. That's usually sole proprietors who aren't sure how to file or how to file. There's quite a few sole proprietors in there as well. One co-op. This is how many employees the people that we're seeing inquiries from have. Most of them have 0 employees, as you can see, but 51% have at least one employee.
So 90s, wow, okay, got it.
97 now, I don't have the number there. I'm sorry, but
Yeah,
97
no.
have the number there.
Yeah.
This is the topics that we discuss. So we really do research, and we educate business owners and organizational leaders that come to us on anything they want to talk about. These are the most frequent topics you can see: contracts, entity choice, entity formation, entity governance agreements, liability in general, especially insurance, and intellectual property. Those are our biggest categories. And then if you add in entity formation LLC, which is a big question we get, that really means that the biggest topic we talk to people about is whether to form an entity, why they should form it, what the benefit is, and how to do it properly, and how to govern the business. That's a big topic for the console. What do we hear from small businesses? I was here last year. This is a recap. This is the top part is what we heard from Community Navigator Pilot Program. Business owners don't know what they don't know. They're afraid of the unknown unknowns. The law is very confusing and scary. They don't know whether, when, and how they should work with an attorney. Lawyers are inaccessible and costly. The lawyers don't represent them anyways. And recently, we have seen a strong trend in people who are coming to us. They just want to make sure they're doing it right. I see this over and over in the inquiries. I just want to make sure I'm doing this right. I just want to follow the rules. I want to protect my business. I want to make sure I'm doing this the right way. And that's why they're here. You know,
So sometimes it's simply confirmation.
yes, it's simply reassurance that they're looking for. Am I doing this
And
right?
then maybe getting,
I won't go through everything on this slide. I wanted to put this here to highlight, these are the areas that we have seen legal questions in, that we sense there may be a bit of need for regulatory education or just education in general. Some of these, like commercial leases, came out of the floods from 2023 and 2024. That was just a mess. Some of them are just questions that there's easy resources available, like the NDC test for independent contractors, but there's still quite a bit of confusion out there about what's an employee, what's an independent contractor. Anyways, these are the questions that we see the need for education in. Why we are here is threefold. We have current funding that's going to be expiring, and we are seeing intakes increasing pretty steadily. This is how it went up from 2023 to 2024. That's 424 intakes over that 2-year period. And this is the requests for consults. People who want an educational consult has also gone up linearly. So we are currently 100% federally funded. We are working off a congressionally directed spending grant that SBA administers. That expires next June. We also have a small contract with VTSBDC that's allowing us to do the state small business credit initiative work to support those transactions. That's through May 31st, 2026. We do not currently have funding beyond that point. We do not have the ability to offer the service beyond that point with current funding. We're looking right now. We have a small operating budget that allows us to maintain capacity at $600,000. That lets us serve roughly 150 to 160 businesses with education and referral per year, and about 35 presentations per year with our experts. Our ask is for half that, 300,000. That allows us to open up opportunities to find matching grants and matching funding. It allows us to, if the legislature is interested, facilitate educational programming on the legislation that might be responsive to some of the friction points, and allows us to better scale to meet demand. We do not see the demand slowing, and we cannot meet the demand at our current capacity where we can meet it.
well, and also as you serve more people, word of mouth. Number one reason people do stuff is word of mouth. And people, so another business says, well, don't you know about this? And I mean, that's so as you serve more people, there'll be more word of mouth, there'll be more demand.
Right.
Once you publish the pitch, you know.
Yeah, what people was
only
great.
word of mouth,
Why?
Right.
So, I mean, but that's an issue.
Yeah,
Is that
yes,
once
right.
you do that,
Yeah.
then all of the other things that organizations like this do are going to be faced with additional demand. So it's just something to recognize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Well, and we'll prepare for success. You know, that's called buckle down, prepare for success.
Yeah.
That, and I think what you mentioned, you know, we have to find more partners, and all of you represent partnerships between state, fed, and private enterprise. And so that is, the synergy for all that is right here in this committee in large measure. We have, you know, that's where we do some of our best work, is in using all our partnerships, and clearly no one entity is capable of financing it
Absolutely
all.
not. This
But
is
It
such a
doesn't mean
good
the
effort.
need isn't there.
The need's there, and we have seen, and everybody in this room refers people to us and does it regularly, and we absolutely love sending people to the other organizations. The Community Navigator pilot program, as Linda explained, was an enormous connector for the state. It did huge benefits. It provided huge benefits to the state simply because the service providers were able to coordinate. They were able to put everything together to serve the need.
And so that is over now. That is done.
That was done at the end of
It's a
2020.
wonder.
But it was
The relationships that
super
formed,
valuable.
and the connections that formed are enormous.
And that was entirely federally funded from COVID money, from ARPA money.
2.5 million.
Wow. It's great. Any questions for Nicole?
Is the ask of the governor's recommended?
Not as far as I know, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The government's
Did you
recommended.
ask for it anywhere else before here?
No, I did not. I didn't expect it to be asked for here, to be honest with you. I wasn't sure it was gonna.
No, this reflects what we heard at our meeting. What did small businesses need? So, and as you'll see in the draft that we're going to go through with Rick at 10:15, and he maybe is able to come over a little earlier. What you're going to see is those asks, and that's what we'll be discussing is that. But he didn't. Anyway, I'll explain that when we get to that. Thank you. That is that's great and terrific. Thanks. So we now have Wei.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so
Good
much.
with you again.
Yeah, great to see you all too. For the record, my name is Wei Wei Wong. She's a pronoun. I am co-executive director for the Vermont Professions of Color Network. We're a state-wide nonprofit organization. I was here in the committee a couple of weeks ago, I think, and also at the January 29th. So really appreciate having you back here. So I just wanted to big up what everyone else has said already. We have the partnerships with every single organization listed here. And we use the Small Business Law Center a lot to support the businesses that we work with, specifically BIPOC-owned businesses. The majority of the businesses that we support are pre-seed, startup, early and growth stage businesses. A lot of these individuals, like what Mabel had said, they simply just need resources. And so really excited for that resource guide to be supported as well, because that would alleviate some of the work that we're doing, because some of the work or some of the individuals that we're seeing simply need that guiding hand, and they can take the work on their own. That said, a lot of the people that we're supporting need that one-on-one support because of historic exclusion of the BIPOC community. And being here in Vermont, especially coming from other places, you don't know what you don't know, just like Nicole put up on the screen. You don't even know where the bank or the grocery store could be. So right now, the funding that we have for the last 2 years, it's coming to the end in April, and that was in the amount of $250,000, which was contract for 2 years. That supported a lot of different things, including business technical assistance and resource navigation. That actually only supported about 0.5 FTE for our organization around business technical assistance and resource navigation. Over the course of the summer of 2023, because of all the flooding, we used a lot of those funds in order to make our technical assistance person full-time to be able to address all of the needs that were there around flood recovery. And we were able to also receive funding from Vermont Community Foundation to make that a full-time through the end of 2024 in order to continue addressing those needs, luckily, which we had for the 2024 flooding. At this point, that funding has ended. And so what we are asking for is the $350,000 that's in the bill in order to continue the work that we have done and also to maintain the level of service that that business community has come to expect from TPFC. So right now we're able to support 35 business owners every single year. That's new individuals. That's not to say those individuals are not coming back to us with new needs, new asks over the course of the year. And with additional funding, we can support 60 individuals that would not otherwise utilize these resources because through the CMPP project, we, along with Main Street Alliance, conducted the business study, and we found through that, and that covered rural, BIPOC-owned women and veteran-owned businesses. It said 39% of businesses surveyed did not use existing business services because of insufficient information about service organizations, lack of awareness of existing business organizations, discomfort in reaching out because folks felt like they were going to be presented with bias and the perception that their business would not qualify. So a lot of the things that folks have said here, and I think I want to also point out Amigo's point about women-owned businesses only 2% of women-owned businesses.
Yeah, that was stunning.
Yeah, exactly. Additionally, for our survey, 25% of business owners experience bias when accessing public support services. So of the people who did actually use services, at least 25% of them experienced some kind of bias, specifically around race. And there were also other biases that were experienced around youth, family structure, age, family structure, religion, other identifiers, which account for other identities. So, and in our most recent community survey, we found, and that we received 685 completed responses from BIPOC individuals across the state. And that is part of the current contract that we're coming to the end of.
And your contracts with ACCD, correct?
Yeah.
And your base ask of 250 is in the governor's budget. And
yeah, that's the base ask. So actually in the, I got confirmation from Joan, as well as last week during the House Economic Development Committee. The current recommendation is not a base ask. It's actually another 2-year contract.
So one-time funding.
It's a one-time funding. So we would like that to be base. And then the additional $100,000 to support specifically business technical assistance and resource navigation.
Right. And that's quite honestly, our job is to advocate for things we think need funding.
Yeah.
The appropriations committee is figuring out where the money comes from.
Yeah.
So they will take no matter what's included in our committee bill, it will go to appropriations and they will pull all the money out and they will then make those decisions. So that will be, when we all go in front of the appropriations committee, that's our moment.
Yeah.
Ask for fun time or for raise, whatever, whatever.
And so I just wanted to also note that if I could find the page. So with the money that we have utilized so far, the $250,000 over 2 years, we've supported, I did this math this last week, 11,726 individuals. That is direct, kind of what Linda was saying. We're not counting every time we have a conversation, and that leads to someone going to the Small Business Law Center or, just directing people just because we just happen to be in the community. So those are through networking, business and professional networking events. That is through direct outreach. That is business technical assistance, that is professional support. So So in total, if we really want to look at it, the state has spent $21.32 per person that we've supported. If you want to look at it that way. Yeah. So, and we want to have greater capacity to support. Senator Brock, last time I was here, you asked about how many of those individuals, those businesses that we support have we tracked to go to other organizations like the chamber or doing other things. We don't have the capacity to even collect that information right now. And so hopefully with this funding, having us base and also this additional funding, we can actually start to ask these individuals, hey, where are you actually going from? If BTPOC is the jumping off point, where are you able to go from there? So that's what we're hoping to be able to do. And there's a lot of, through this current survey, there's a lot of ask for continued outreach. We have partnered with state, like the Secretary of State's office, the Treasurer's office. A lot of our work has been to make sure that people know about state offered resources. And that is what is so critical, because these are free services like Vermont Saves, you know, even some of my, just folks that I work in the, business services, for business service providers, they don't know about Vermont Saves. And so how do we get the word out for businesses, especially who would be so deeply impacted, to be able to offer the service to their employees and to retain employees? That would be a huge asset to the BIPOC business community and to the everybody.
Yeah.
And so that's what part of the hope is, that we can take for that resource navigation part, to be able to work more deeply with state service departments, et cetera, to really elucidate all of these incredible assets that we have at the state. And I talk about the Department of Labor all the time, actually, because they have this great career navigation and employer support service that nobody knows about.
I know. It's I think it's fair to say it's under heralded.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And so would love to be able to drive more traffic that way. And so we at BTPOC, we're not trying to replicate anything that anybody else is doing. We're actually trying to be the pipe that brings the water to the people. So a lot of that water is
the switchboard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so we are asking for the $250,000 base.
Right. Right.
I'll pause for any questions.
Yeah. Randy, Tom, David. No, we have time to ask. So thank you, Wei Wei.
Yeah, thank you.
Would you be kind enough to send us the results? I'm not sure, you may have already done this and I just don't know where it is. Would you be kind enough to send us results of your survey?
Yes. I can send that.
If you send it to Heidi, then she'll share it with all of us.
Absolutely.
That would be terrific. Anything else? Ellen, you want to wrap us up?
Well, I just was wondering about in the bill, I know Rick is going to be walking through it, but you had in here about a task force on
Yes. Would you
capital.
You know what, while you're here, would you, because I asked for your input on it. There were two things, committee, that I was hearing that we needed to address, the real need for small business, and particularly for small business after its first initial growth period, is access to capital. We all talk about how can we enable access to capital. I'm not actually sure what the state's role is in that. And so the first task force, and it's up for us to talk about, is what is the state's role in enabling access to capital? How can we, is there a role? Is it appropriate? I mean, and so that's one task force. And I thought I'd put it back. I gave it back to Ellen and Linda a little bit to see if we could flush it out a little. And the second thing I've heard from the business community is a need for a conference center and performance space.
Yes.
And a performance venue. And I know that the university is working on it. I know the chamber, the Lake Champlain Chamber is working on this. How can we help move that along and have a task force that really focuses more attention on it and makes some more progress on it? So those are the two task forces that are in here. They're not fully fleshed out yet because they were a way to move the conversation forward with us not having enough time. And Also, I'm not sure with us having the expertise for either of those. So Ellen, I asked Ellen and Linda to think about the access to capital piece. And so Ellen, if you'd be kind of, and in your draft bill, it is, it is on
Section
page,
7.
it's section 7, I think. Is that right?
Yep, section 7, page 12.
Thank you.
Yep,
This is just so initial, but I
Yeah.
just thought we should have this conversation.
yeah. No, I think it's a good idea as a starting point. The way that, I think you asked Rick to, assess this or to lay this out was to have originally a sort of 4-person committee.
Yeah, 4 or 5. I mean,
And
just
so
abolish.
there was-
Bringing it through.
Yes, and bringing in experts. So, there was, I had suggested that, you also have the CEO of the Vermont Economic Development Authority, present, and then on it, and then, Rick went in and put I didn't offer that. Actually, that was not my idea.
I think that might have been mine.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so, there are a number of, what I had provided to Rick was a list of additional, experts in the capital provider community. I understand the logic of having a smaller task force and then bringing a lot of people in as opposed to having them on the task force. So obviously that's for consideration. And then but I did think it would be helpful to have somebody representing the commercial bank lender experience, because one of the things that's really challenging is that is getting the commercial lender community to really understand the needs of small businesses, and especially over time, and linking them up with, there's very little connectivity between the business and technical assistance service provider community with lenders. And so what we've done, I serve on the Working Lands Enterprise Board. We have, through that grant program, really ensured that there is technical and business assistance that's married with funding.
Yeah.
Because those two things are really critical at these early stages of business development. Is you want to have, get from one stage to the next. As we've talked about, there's different skills that are needed. So as you're expanding your business and you're adding capacity, both of staff and of equipment and space and new markets, you need to change your internal business systems to be able to match those, that expanded capacity and sales. So I really felt like it would be both illuminating for the task force to have a commercial lender on alongside, but then also would be very instructive to the lender itself.
Yes, absolutely.
About the needs because of what is going to be heard, with the idea that they could then bring that back to their lender community.
So I hope in all our work, we're actively listening to.
So there's probably one additional, if you're gonna have a reduced task force, I would suggest one
It
additional
doesn't
power.
need to be just 5, it could be 7. I mean, it's for us to discuss.
Sure. But in the powers and duties, we have in there number 1, receive
Wait a minute, let me get to powers and duties. That's on page
13.
13.
Number 1, C1, line 15. Receive testimony from startup and early stage businesses that have struggled to raise capital. I would suggest adding an additional power and duty to hear from other capital providers.
Yes.
So if you're not going to have them on the task force, then make sure that
That's
to
essential
hear from them, right?
Because we actually have quite a few. I was thinking of this the other morning at my financial committee for the Vermont Symphony Orchestra, and we had Maple Capital in, and it would be a great group to have join us for this.
So, and then it's just other things around, identify ways to offer investor education and high net worth individuals. And talking to Janice St. Ange from the Flexible Capital Fund yesterday about this, and I was getting
what's Janice?
Janice is the Flexible Capital Fund.
That's right.
Right. Asking her about what should go in this area. One of the big areas of need is we have a lot of high net worth individuals in this state, and they actually have very little understanding of how to invest well.
Yes. So maybe another resource guide would be for that crap.
Well, there's education. There's education that can happen that's not coordinated and is not happening at scale.
Right.
There is the Vermont Women's Investor Network, which Janice helped to create along with Louisa Shibley from Rural Edge, for instance. But it there needs to get out even more because we don't have an active angel network in this state. There's no.
We did at one point.
Yeah, we did at one point.
What
They're
happened?
not active. They're not getting together. There's.
They
Well,
used to
that's-
meet once a month and,
Can you explain the concept?
Oh,
Angel network.
oh, sorry. Yeah, so there's individuals who will make direct investments in companies, 50, 10, 25, 50, 100,000, sometimes more. And so what would happen at usually that in angel investor network would be, there would be companies looking for capital that would come and pitch their need to a group of angel investors. And then if angel investors were interested, they would have one-on-one conversations and work a deal. That kind of activity is not happening anymore in the state. Janice also raised a really important concern that I hadn't heard about, which is
And Janice's last name again?
Saint Onge,
Saint Onge.
ST, then ONGE. One of the challenges that we're facing, just like with all of our aging demographics, is that a lot of the folks that have been in the capital provider community, from venture capital to integrated capital, they too are going to be retiring.
They're baby boomers.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, so Karen Frost.
Yes, I can.
He's going to be retiring. So there is a generational transfer happening of knowledge and expertise at the capital provider level as well that we're not addressing in a coordinated way. So I think that could be a very helpful topic of conversation.
Do you think, so I guess my question first and foremost is, do you think this is a useful task force?
Yes.
Thank you. And we just need to flush it out a bit.
That, and I would also just encourage that it's something that we raise the profile on, that this is going to happen. If
This will help raise. the-
right? If these kind of conversations and you're able to bring in a lot of additional different types of capital providers to talk about what they're seeing on the landscape in terms of levels of need, like having someone from Launch VT that comes in and talks about all the startup companies and that they are trying to support and what level of funding those companies are looking for. All of that would be super.
Rick, your timing is perfection, because what we're discussing is flushing out the task force on capital and access to capital.
Fantastic.
So I would just encourage that you add that, that to hear from, receive testimony from a wide range of capital providers, right?
Oh, yeah, wide range of capital providers, and the commercial bank and lending community.
Which is, well, there is number 7 is a seventh person on the task force that is a commercial.
Oh, it's already at
Yeah,
it.
it's
You and Rick already clearly discussed.
yes.
What do you think, Thomas?
I did not ask for number 6, just to be clear.
Yeah, no, I think I did, in all fairness.
Yeah.
I think I did. So, any other questions given?
well, I think worth a couple phone calls, perhaps, Vermont Center for Emerging Technologies.
Yes.
One,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
because
David,
I want to make sure that this network of angels doesn't exist anymore, because I know
So-
it was active and regularly met.
yeah,
I,
what could you?
there are investment that groups and people who know who they are.
Yes, yes, there are
Should
investments
reach
out
out.
there, right. I think the question is how formal a network is it
Yeah,
at this
it was
point?
an informal network even,
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
Because I don't
But
remember
I
it
think
being
that's
active.
a function that ought to be in this group. So that's where the money is for startups that
Yeah.
of many different kinds, rather than borrowing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So Randy and Ellen, I hate to ask, but with all the resources in this room, as it were, could we do a little digging and find out what happened to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. But these are terrific suggestions. And while you're here, any thoughts on the second task force that we are proposing, possibly putting together, which is how to move forward on a conference center for Vermont and or a major performing venue, which I would hope would be the sort of synonymous space.
Certainly necessary.
Certainly necessary.
We are lacking in a lot of facilities. It's the only thing is location is always.
Always a
Issue.
question. And
Yeah.
lodging, I know the lodging community is very
Yes.
keen on this, but also would be very challenged by this because depending on what our capacity is, we have to probably.
There's
build
no
more
perfect
which would-
place. There's
But-
there's no perfect place. Although people would say, obviously,
Well,
something
actually,
like
I think
Burlington.
there's a perfect. place.
Well, that's centralized. That's the thing. I think in terms of traveling to a lot of traveling. I mean, I know I'm always hunting around for a location that could fit the capacity. We
Right.
overfill over 250, but doesn't you want a certain character to it as well. And then if you want a
Right.
larger audience, trying to be in a place where people can drive to that location. So it's hard with the geographic nature of the state to appease everyone.
It is, and everyone wants to be either near an airport or
Correct.
maybe not near an airport. One Vermont experience, it's tough to win. Anyway,
It's certainly necessary and
Absolutely.
economically would be a driver for a lot of things in terms of bringing conferences and things that could really focus on where Vermont is and what we have in terms of capacity.
Well, it could be a huge economic development.
For sure.
there.
It will.
So I think from an economic development wearing that hat, I think we are quite interested in seeing what. And we know there are conversations. It's not like people aren't talking about this, but I think what I heard was that from Thomas, I mean, again, I've listened to all of us and what we're keen on. And to me, this is not only an economic development driver, but it's a whole. And it would bring, for me, this conversation, if we ask for it and direct an intentional conversation about it, it'll bring a lot of the people who are already discussing it together, and maybe we can actually have an action plan come out. So I think that would be key. And any other questions, committee? Okay, we're all set. I have one last question, which is micro business is very important for all of us, and the CAP, the Community Action Partners, enabling micro business. For me, that is like the first run on our growing businesses in this state in many ways. And they aren't. We've included them in this bill because we have been advocates for them. This committee's been a strong advocate for them, right, for a long time, as long as I've served on this committee. Any thoughts about integrating them more fully in what we're talking about? I mean, they're in our bill to support. They work with you, I assume.
Yeah,
pretty closely, and
Deeply.
they funnel people into all these responsibilities.
Half of the people that come to us don't have employees.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So how many, did you say 50% of those?
There's 51% have at least one employee. That's 49% of employees. Yeah, that was over 400 businesses that came to us.
Right.
Years.
Yeah.
Yeah, the majority of people I meet are all solopreneurs.
Yeah, same.
That come to my meetings.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Or the people that we service. Yeah.
I want to offer this. We are running a companion series with BTS BDCs that addresses legal basics for startups. That's part of the proposal that we made as well. That fills at least a hole to have legal basics. Twice a month.
So on where it's appropriate, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I think we'd enjoy being invited to anything where we could actually watch you in action.
Oh my goodness.
It would be interesting to be invited to join. And I say this, I mean, for all the work that we do, we often, bring people here, but we also are able in our different communities on a Monday. All of us are sort of taking what we're hearing in this committee and going out into our communities and listening and looking.
And I would just, thinking about that, we can certainly schedule some things on Mondays to make it more convenient. I think one of the things that everyone has attempted to do anyway, since the pandemic where the demand continues to be high, is to do things webinar one-to-many in addition to one-on-one. And so we run a monthly Starting Your Own Business in Vermont webinar. We'd be happy to have
that would be
members to
interesting
see
for us,
again
I think, for us to-
firsthand what is covered,
Yeah.
what is not.
Yeah.
How does that fit into
Yeah.
the access to capital conversation? Because, I didn't mention, there's so many things in our testimony we could add to,
Yeah.
but the majority of our clients come to the Vermont SBDC for some access to capital request, starting, growing, refinancing. And so our relationship with those commercial lenders is statewide, and I look forward to joining the conversation at the right time to provide input that's helpful on the access to capital piece.
Great. Terrific. I think that would be helpful. Anyways. Thank you. This was great and informs our next conversation, which is with our fabulous legislative counsel and drafter. And if you have, as you look at it, it's available online. This draft, the new draft is going to be available online at the minute he starts walking us through it in 5 minutes. Sure. No, in 10, 20.
Everybody.
We need a little bit of a break.
Madam Chair, there's also a military pay press conference, which I promised to be there. So I have to be there like from 10 until 10:20 and 30.
I need to be there as well.
But
It's a press conference.
I don't do press conference, but I owe them, and this is important, so I have
To
to
be
be there. to-
Okay.
Then I'll get back here as soon as possible.
Give us a little
Okay.
flexibility.
So we're going to say farewell for the moment. We will be back. It's starting at 10.